Nice to see all of you here, sunny day. So again, we will start as usual with the short motivations. Try to quiet your mind by watching the breath for a few moments. Then we can try to generate good intention, motivation, by thinking, may our life be helpful and beneficial to other sentient beings. At least may we never intentionally hurt and harm and bring pain and suffering to others. And to be able to do that all the time, we need to cultivate the awakening mind of the Bodhicitta, and the wisdom realizing the reality. And for that, we need to practice, contemplate, meditate. And for that, we need to be reminded of those crucial practice meditations. That's why we have come here together, to be reminded so we can continue to practice, and so that our wisdom and compassion continue to grow. So we can be more benefit and help to others and oneself. And may it be cause and conditions to obtain our highest potential, fully awakened state, so we can be not only help and benefit, but greatest help and benefit to each and every sentient beings. Okay. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through this new Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Jodang Soge Sonam La Changju Badu Dane Dagi Chushe Gibe Sonam Ge Dola Benche Sangye Duba Sangye Jodang Soge Sonam La Changju Badu Dane Dagi Chushe Gibe Sonam Dola Benche Sangye Duba. So for months during this Sunday morning, we have been trying to discuss about the path to enlightenment, the stages of path to enlightenment by following particular verses by one of the great Tibetan masters, Benjen Losam Choyken. And up to last week, we kind of discussed where he explained about the whole this lamrim of stages of the path within the context of a 7-point mind training. And whole lamrim is, it can be summarized within the context of 7-point of mind training, as we already discussed, some of the practice, such as the practice of small scope and middle scope as a preliminary practice to the main practice, that is the practice to cultivate and generate to awaken the mind of the Bodhicitta, and then the practice of Bodhicitta being the main practice within the 7-point of mind training, and then, with the practice of, by bringing the understanding of, the wisdom and the Bodhicitta mind to transform all whatever difficulties, whatever challenges, suffering that we experience in our life, to transform them in the path by bringing the practice of the Bodhicitta and the wisdom of both of them, so that is how we can transform, so that is the third point, and we also talk about by following, how to transform the difficulty into the path through the thoughts, and as well as through the actions by applying the 4 practices. And also, we also talk about, discuss about how to take all the practice within the, how to integrate within the lifetime, through the practice of 5 forces or power, whatever you call, by applying the 5 forces or the forces or power, then integrating the practice, the whole practice within the lifetime, and then we also discuss, the other 7-point of mind training, that is how to measure our progress in our path, how to measure how much progress we have made on the path in terms of training or lamrim, in terms of training our in terms of training on our lodging or mind training, so that we can actually measure ourselves and to see how much progress have made, where I am now, where I need to go further, so we don't have to depend on others to actually evaluate and measure ourselves. We can measure ourselves if we learn enough to see where we are and where we need to be and how much we need to work and where we need to work more on, all of that, And then we also spoke about, of course, here, Benchen Losang Yishin, the great master, he doesn't go details on the the Lojong's commitments and the advices, but he does mention. So with that, then it is the 7 point of mind trainings. We kind of discuss all that up to verse number, I think we finished verse number 98, yeah? And I think we're 99, yeah? So up to verse number 98, that is what we kind of, until last week, so again, in verse number 99, again, he kind of bring back, again, he touched on, again, the Bodhicitta, even though that has been kind of discussed quite little bit depth earlier in some of the other verses. But still, again, on verse number 99 and 100, and especially 99, here again kind of bring and touch on the Bodhicitta again. The reason is, again, because the Bodhicitta is the very center of all this practice. The Bodhicitta is the very heart of all those practice. The Bodhicitta is the very essence of that, so to emphasize all different practice we do, all other different practice we do are a way we should use all other practice to support this main practice, the Bodhicitta mind. Some as a preliminary, or foundational practice towards that, and some of them as a way to support that directly, indirectly. And so again, that is the key. So when we study all these lamrim or mind trainings, lojongs, all, we see that, and I think we shouldn't forget that. Sometimes we get distracted and feel, I've heard so much about Bodhicitta, I've heard and studied so much about lamrim, lojong. I want to hear more advanced, something I've not heard before, something more interesting. Because our mind gets some, we still have materialistic mind. We all want new things all the time, Get bored with something that you have already had. Lamrim lojong, because we have learned and we have studied, we have here so much time, we feel bored about that. And I want to hear something I've never heard before. Something new, something exciting. And that is our materialistic mindset, that we want new something else. Not being, So again, the point is, if you don't have the Bodhicitta mind, all other practices, you can do it, we can study it, we can practice it. It doesn't really make much transformation and change in our heart. We can visualize all kinds of things, we can feel bliss out, all of that. But does that change your attitude? That's your mind? That is the whole thing, I can feel very bliss out for hours, 2 hours, but has that changed my attitude? And sometimes we like that idea, you just want to be bliss out, oh, it's such a nice feeling. Well, of course, it's a nice feeling, good, but is it changing your mind? Is it changing your attitude? That is the thing, the whole. And so I think, again, that is why, no matter how much we study, practice, at the end, we always come to this basic. Once you have cultivated that Bodhicitta mind, then of course, then if we with the basis of having two Bodhicitta, the conventional and ultimate Bodhicitta, on the basis of that, and if we kind of explore other practice, other training, and then other practices can be effective and helpful. Without the foundations of the true Bodhicitta, then, yeah, all different kind of high practices, all this different level of tantric practices or whatever, all of those things, it doesn't really change your heart, your 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 attitude, and it doesn't change, then there isn't so much benefit, of practice. The whole is to really change and transform your heart, your attitude, your mind, Um, mm, and I've already mentioned many times before as well, even in, I have to go certain, I had to go, to make some, goes where to find out that you actually need to come and work with your basic, and that is my personal feeling, because I found out I still need to work on those foundations. If I don't have that good foundations, I can have all kind of very secret, very holy, very profound, very rare, all this empowerment, initiation, all these teachings, but all this doesn't change my mind, doesn't change. I've received so many of them. I've tried to practice some of them. It doesn't really change my mind so much and come to a basic understanding, oh, I need to still work on my foundations. The reason why those practices didn't become so effective as they should be, those practices didn't become as profound as they should be, is because I didn't have a strong foundations. That is my case. Of course, in your cases, some of you, it might be different. Maybe if you have a strong foundations, you already have Bodhicitta mind, you already have both Bodhicitta mind and a conventional ultimate Bodhicitta mind, then on the basis of that, then you are working with other practices, those some of the more advanced practices, then maybe then you find helpful, profound or vast as it should be. But so anyway, I think I got kind of, again, I got lost again, I got distracted. The reason I'm saying here is, again, to emphasize the importance of continue to work on our Bodhicitta mind. And that is why the author is also, again, bringing that again and again. In lamrim, again and again, always come to that, because so that is where it is. In the verse number 99, again, you can see that in order to rescue all the transmigratory beings from the vast sea of existence, ocean of samsara, in order to help, in order to liberate all the living beings, who are in the, endless vast sea or oceans of existence, samsara, sufferings. I seek your blessing to train only in Bodhicitta, then asking for the blessings from our gurus, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, for their blessing, for their inspirations, for so that we can train in Bodhicitta, so we can train in Bodhicitta. If we have the Bodhicitta, then we will be able to help and benefit more, others more. If we don't have Bodhicitta, then it become, we will not be able to help and benefit much, And so therefore, in order to train so that we can cultivate the bodhicitta attitude, the bodhicitta mind within ourselves, that is the bodhicitta, which is the very source of our happiness, source of other happiness, temporary happiness, ultimate happiness. And how can we cultivate the bodhicitta mind? How can we cultivate it? How can we train in bodhicitta mind? How can we train and cultivate in bodhicitta mind? Then, the next two lines: through love, compassionate, and special attitude. So as already mentioned before, first we try to, if we try to understand, all sentient beings are being our most kind mother sentient beings, remembering the kindness of them, and feeling the kindness of them, and then generating a strong wish to repay the kindness. And through that kind of training and practice, then we started to feel all sentient beings as very precious, very dear, very close to us, very dear, very close, very precious, and very kind. So we try to cultivate that. If we have that feeling, if we can feel any beings, if we can feel anyone very connected, feeling very strongly connected, strongly precious, strongly very dear and close to our heart, to ourselves, it's much more easy to feel love and compassion, so then it becomes much more easy to feel compassion, love, and and so therefore we train that. And then also we also meditate on the shortcoming of selfish attitude, the benefit of cherishing others, and through that kind of training, through that kind of meditation, through that kind of practice, then our mind becomes more and more concerned about others' well-beings, caring more and more about the well-being of others. And when we started to feel, concern and more care and more empathy towards others, again, love and compassion come more easily, And so then through that, you develop the love, the wish to see all sentient beings in happiness and cause of happiness, and the compassion, the wish to see all sentient beings free from the suffering and cause of suffering. And through that love and compassion, once you have that love and compassion, then you try to cultivate even more stronger attitude of, here as it says, special attitude. Special attitude here is when we develop love and compassion, of course, we want to see others be happy and to have cause of happiness. We want to see them free from suffering and cause of suffering, But then we develop even stronger courages of this special attitude that not only you want to see them, but I want to create cause and condition. I want to lead them to happiness and cause of happiness. I want to create cause and condition to reduce and relief of their suffering. I want to free them from the suffering and cause of suffering. So making that kind of stronger commitments with that kind of attitude, special attitude you try to develop. Not only you want to see others being happy, but that you make a commitment mentally with that attitude that I want to lead them to happiness and cause of happiness. I want to free them from suffering and cause. Not only I want to see them free from suffering and cause, but I want to free them from the suffering and cause of suffering. So that kind of attitude is much more stronger attitude. The special attitude is much more stronger, more powerful, stronger attitude, which is the cause of the bodhicitta, And then through such training in love, compassion, and special attitude, then so with that training or attitude, you really have this courage and confidence, and you really want to free them from suffering and cause of suffering. You really want to help them from happiness and cause of happiness. But when we analyze our own immediate kind of state, forget about helping others to free from all their suffering and cause of suffering. We are not being able to free ourselves from all the suffering and cause of suffering. Forget about them leading to the ultimate happiness and cause of ultimate happiness. We ourselves is unable to achieve ultimate happiness and cause of ultimate happiness. Because we are still very unenlightened, full of a lot of delusions, afflictive emotions. So when we ourselves is full of afflictive emotions, it will be extremely difficult to help someone to be free from the afflictive emotions. When we ourselves confused, it will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to help someone to be less confused and have more clarity and more wisdom. And so therefore, not ourselves, even the more enlightened beings, even many of the bodhisattvas, even the arhat, those who are free from all the afflictive emotions, those who are free from all the suffering, even them, the help and benefit they can do for other sentient beings still limited. They can help and benefit much more than what we can do, because they are more enlightened, because they have more compassion, because they have more wisdom, because they have no afflictive emotion or less afflictive emotions. So definitely they are able to help and be benefit to more other sentient beings and more sentient beings. But still, still they cannot benefit limitlessly, because themselves is not also fully enlightened at this point. They are much enlightened than us, but they are still not fully enlightened. They still have some obscurations. They still haven't actualized all the positive qualities. And therefore, they can be benefit, help, but still limited. And so then, if we can achieve fully enlightened, when we are free from all the obscurations, the state where we are free from all the obscurations, the state when we have actualized all the positive qualities, then one can be able to help limitlessly towards all sentient beings. So when you become fully enlightened, you can benefit with your body, you can benefit your speech, you can benefit with your mind all the time. So many sentient beings, just by seeing the body of enlightened beings, whatever emotion that have been disturbed, frustrations, impatience, anger, just by looking and seeing the enlightened body, enlightened being, their mind become very calm, peaceful. Without saying any word, without doing anything, just by looking at that's energy that they feel from that enlightened beings present. By looking at that in the body of the Buddha or enlightened beings, it helped their mind be calm, peaceful, less angry, less frustrated, less impatience. And of course, through their speech, to be able to present, in according to how they can understand, be able to present more skillful way, in the most beneficial way, according to the need of individuals, and sharing the wisdom, experience, the Dharma, through that, then they started to, work with their mind, and they started to make progress in their mind, attitude, and where they started to become more and more enlightened, more and more peaceful. Mm. At the moment, even like when we try to share Dharma, when we try to share your knowledge, it doesn't, being unenlightened, it doesn't always necessarily help and benefit the others. Sometimes it upset the other persons. Do you get it? You are excited to share some Dharma, you are excited, and the other person get upset about when you talk about that. The other person's, what are you talking about it? Garbage. It doesn't not only not help them, even sometimes upset them. And that is because we don't have the skillful means how to present the Dharma in the right way that the other person can understand without being offended, without being upset, but instead something that becomes inspiring, And of course, we are sharing something good, Dharma, but we don't have that skillful, we don't have the enough wisdom, we don't have the skillful um, method to present it that can be more beneficial for that person's, And so therefore, even the Dharma, then, instead of helping, sometimes even make them unhelpful, others, because they are not ready to hear that, or maybe they didn't want to hear the way I presented or way we presented, They might be willing to hear it if it is presented in a skillful way, in a more better way, where they might be more open to that, So, and the reason why I'm unable to present it skillfully because I don't have enough wisdom, because I don't have the enlightened mind. And so, but once you have enlightened mind, enlightened mind, once you have, enlightened mind, that can, understand the predispositions of each and every sentient beings, karmic level of each and every sentient beings, understanding the level of their mind, everything, then, and then, unconditional love, compassion with that, then you will be able to present according to what is most beneficial, helpful to those different individuals, according to their different capacity of their mind, according to their different level of mental state, according to their different level of karmic imprint, predispositions. And then, then you can be so much help, benefit to each and every sentient beings all the time, Mm. And so when we understand that, then we get a strong inspiration to become fully enlightened and to achieve that fully enlightened state as quick as possible. Because you can see how much difference you can make to the world, to the all sentient beings. How much real, deep, not only just difference, but not on surface level, artificial level, or temporary kind of differences, but deep differences on very fundamental level. You can see how much such a huge difference you can make in the life of all sentient beings. When you see that, when you understand that, then the wish, the inspirations to achieve that state really come very strongly, very strongly. And that is the Bodhicitta mind. That is the Bodhicitta mind. Again, I've mentioned before, whether you call it fully enlightened state, whether you call it fully awakened state, whether you call it Buddhahood, whether you call it the best, the highest potential of yourself, whether you call, the best of yourself, they're all same. Because sometimes, the reason I'm kind of using this because sometimes the word just enlightenment seems to, people have sometimes have problem with that word. Enlightenment just seem too far away. And sometimes I have to remind that again, people, because when we talk about Bodhicitta, we talk about, achieving enlightenment, fully awakened state. But sometimes people feel too far away. But if I said, wanting to be your best and actualizing your highest potential, that is, it is. When you actualize your highest potential, that is what it is, enlightenment is. When you are able to actualize your highest potential, that is it. When we talk about actualizing our highest potential, it doesn't feel like alien to us, isn't it? It doesn't feel like too far away or somewhere else, but that is what it is. So that is the Bodhicitta mind. So that is training in Bodhicitta through love, compassion, and special attitude. And then there are other practices that we train in order to have the love and compassion. And out of the love and compassion, you cultivate the special attitude. And through that, then you develop the Bodhicitta mind. So that is how we train Bodhicitta. Conjoined with the technique of mounting, taking, and giving about the breath. So that is the last line of that one verse. And when we train in the loving kindness and compassion in order to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, in order to progress, improve, develop even stronger loving kindness, stronger compassion, then we try to use these particular meditations of Tonglen, taking and giving, by using the breath as a vehicle for that practice. You use the breath because this breathing is something we have to do all the time. Naturally, we have to do. Otherwise, we will not be here. And so we are breathing in and out all the time. And so we use that, the breath that is natural to us, which is a natural part of us, as a vehicle to utilize this particular technique of practice and meditation on Tonglen and taking, what we call Tonglen, or taking and giving, imagining, visualizing, taking the other's problem, suffering, and pain, and cause of suffering, and sending all your happiness, virtues, goodness to others. So that practice help us to cultivate and develop more love, compassion, and then Bodhicitta mind. So that is the meaning of that verse. And then next one. I seek your blessing that I may eagerly endeavor to put into practice the three Mahayana moral conducts and to restrain my mind stream with the pure vow of conqueror's sons, the single path journey by all conqueror of the three times. So once we have that Bodhicitta mind, okay, the awakening Bodhicitta mind, even though maybe we might not have the, at the moment, true realization, which is, effortless. When you have the bodhicitta mind, the wish to, the inspiration, the wish to achieve fully enlightened or fully awakened state for the benefit of all sentient beings, where it comes naturally, spontaneously, effortlessly, day and night, all the time. That is when we have the realization of bodhicitta mind. That is what we call realizations. In Tibetan, tokpa, realizations. But before we have that kind of effortless, spontaneous, natural inspiration of that, first we need to practice, train, and for that practice, train require effort. So we put effort in our practice, in our meditation, in our training. And when we put some effort and when we practice, meditate, contemplate, we feel a little bit of bodhicitta. But when we don't put effort, contemplate, then we don't feel that way. Okay? So through training, practice, contemplation, when you started to feel a little bit of that bodhicitta mind, little bit of that, even though it's not effortless, even though it's not all the time, even though it's naturally, but when you put some effort and when you try to reflect, contemplate, meditate, you do feel that. Once you have that, then in order to stabilize that bodhicitta mind, small bodhicitta mind we have now, small with the effort, the small bodhicitta mind that we have cultivated with some effort, with some practice, in order to stabilize that. Then we take aspiring bodhicitta precept or vows, aspiring or wishing bodhicitta vows. When you have, in order to stabilize that, and to do that, there are certain kind of ceremony. If you could find qualified teachers to lead in that ceremony and to give that vow, then of course we try to take that. And once we have taken that, the aspiring bodhicitta, and through certain ceremony, of course there are many different ceremony, very, very extensive ceremony, very short ceremony, very kind of middle, there are many different way of doing that. Any of them can be okay, according to different masters, according to different traditions, and sometimes some teachers, they do very extensive ceremonies. Sometimes it's 2 days, or sometimes, it can be very short, so whatever, to stabilize that bodhicitta mind, And once we have taken the aspiring bodhicitta mind, then we try to, in order to make sure that, we don't lose them. And in order to make sure that we don't lose that in, in this life and in the future, then we try to engage in a certain take the precept, so trying to meditate by contemplating on the benefit of bodhicitta mind, by contemplating on the benefit of the bodhicitta mind again and again, and thereby, so that we're much more stronger in inspirations and joy in order to train and in order to practice on that. The more you see the benefit, the more you contemplate the benefit, the more inspiration you develop to practice, to maintain that, and to practice that, and more joy you have in practicing that. So that is one, and then again, in order to not to deteriorate the bodhicitta mind, then we try to practice, 6 times a day, lot of time you see 6 times, like now it is easy for make 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening. We recite the Bodhicitta prayers 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening, at least 6 times, And when we recite it, it's just not reciting the word. The point is that we use the word to actually feel it, When we become lazy, then of course we just recite it quickly, But the whole purpose of reciting all these different prayers is actually the prayer are a vehicle to contemplate. We use that words to contemplate on the meaning of that word, to contemplate and to feel, So here, contemplate and feeling the Bodhicitta, And when we really do practice, like it's a 6 times a day, So like, it's like every 3 hours, Or if you do 24 hours, then it is like every 4 hours, Also, we see that with same with the commitment or refuge as well, 6 times a day. But because people doesn't have time, because people doesn't have time to that, a lot of the people, or they cannot. So then some of the teachers make it easy, do 3 times in the morning and 3 times in the evening, And then, at least we try to try to recite the Bodhicitta prayer and try to contemplate and try to feel as much as possible during that time. So by doing that, we keep the Bodhicitta mind alive from dying, from deteriorating, diminishing, So that is, so to that, and then, not letting go of, not giving up to work for the benefit of other sentient beings. Okay. Sometimes, when we try to help someone, sometimes, they might be mischievous, they might not be kind, or sometimes we see certain individuals who doesn't seem, kind, and who seems very cruel, unkind. Then we feel like, I don't want to help that person, because that happens, because that person cruel, mean to you individually, or it could be they are mean and unkind to someone else. It could be any beings. It could be because they are cruel and mean to an animal or any beings, any human beings, any beings. You see them and you get very upset, angry to see that kind of behavior, that kind of actions, because of such a cruelty, such a mean behavior and actions, And because of that anger and upset, sometimes we might feel, I'm not going to work, I'm not going to help and be benefit and work for that person. That happens, then there is a danger of losing the Bodhicitta. Not danger, we would lose the Bodhicitta, there is danger. Because when we develop the Bodhicitta mind and when we make that kind of commitments, we develop the Bodhicitta mind to liberate each and every sentient beings, each and every sentient beings. Okay? When we make that kind of Bodhicitta, when we develop that kind of Bodhicitta mind, and when we took those precepts, we didn't say, I'm going to liberate only those who are kind and compassionate. Okay? And I'm not going to liberate those who are mean and unkind and cruel. When we cultivate Bodhicitta mind, as well as when we take those kind of the vows, commitments, we make in order to help, in order to benefit, in order to liberate each and every sentient beings. So when you say, I'm not going to help one human being, sentient being forever, then that is, it become obstacle for your bodhicitta, because you have given up one sentient beings now. You have given up one sentient beings. So when you're giving up one sentient beings, your bodhicitta that you have developed, the precept that you have taken for the benefit of all sentient beings, that collapse. That collapse. And so therefore, we have to be very mindful and watchful of our thoughts, so that we don't have that kind of thoughts, so that we don't get, so that kind of thought doesn't arise. So that could affect our bodhisattva's vows as well as our bodhicitta mind, to lose them in this life, So that is one. And then, in order to continue to walk on our path, and to make more and more progress on the bodhisattva path, and to cultivate stronger and stronger bodhicitta mind, we need to create a lot of merit. The merit are the virtues that support that practice, your spiritual practice on this particular path, the bodhisattva path, to be benefit to other sentient beings, and to develop that strong attitude to be benefit to all sentient beings, that bodhicitta mind, to in order to keep it alive, not only keep it alive, but to be able to grow stronger, bigger and bigger. We need a lot of cooperative, supporting conditions. And creating the merit is that. Creating the merit is that cooperating, supporting conditions for that. So therefore we try to engage into creating as much as merit as possible, as much as virtues as possible, through body, speech, mind. Whenever we get any opportunity to do that, try to do that. So those are the kind of the four practice that will help us to keep the bodhicitta mind alive, as well as to keep our both aspiring bodhicitta vows from breaking it or polluting it. So that is, then in order to make sure that, that we don't kind of break those, again, vows and the bodhicitta mind in the futures, then, trying to train in, for, there are 4 different kind of virtues practice, and refraining from the 4 non-virtues practice, which are the opposite of those 4 virtues practice, So I don't want to go too much in that now at the moment, so that we don't get kind of lost again, kind of distracted, and then once you have, because we are talking about stages, so that is how each stages comes, So then once you have taken that precept or the vows of aspiring bodhicitta, and as you work on that, your bodhicitta becomes stronger and stronger. And really, you want to really achieve this fully enlightened, because you feel really strong compassion to sentient beings, and you really want to help and benefit them, Then we come to a certain understanding, even though that kind of bodhicitta mind, aspiring bodhicitta mind, is wonderful thoughts, attitude, virtues, but in order to really be benefit directly to other sentient beings, as well as to achieve enlightenment, that itself is not enough. We need to engage in a practice of the bodhisattva practice, such as 6 perfections, known as 6 perfections or 6 paramita, And so then you understand that, you understand, it is as Shantideva explained, there is no, you have strong feeling that, I need to go to the town because you need to do something, because you need to do something very important. So you feel like I need to go there. So having that thought to go there in order to take care of whatever important things, that is good, because that is the beginning. That is the beginning. But if you don't actually start going there, then you will not be able to take care of it. Just having that thought to go there will not take care of the important thing that you need to take care of. Once you have thought that, then you need to actually go there, whether you are walking, whether you are driving, whatever, to really reach there and to take care of whatever. Same way, then, in order to reach the enlightenment, so you can be benefit to others and take care of others, then we need to go, and going there, the vehicle that leads you to there, the transportation that leads to you there, is the practice of six paramita, the bodhisattva practice, such as six paramita. So when you understand that, then also you have strong feeling that I must and I want to engage in the practice of six paramita or six perfections. And once you're there, you have that strong feeling, strong aspirations that I want to engage and practice in the practice of bodhisattva, such as six perfections. Then you take the engaging bodhisattva vows. Then you take engaging bodhisattva vows. When you strongly feel, I want to practice those six paramita, because that is the path, that is the way, that is the only way, that is the only path, that is the only transportations that can lead me to enlightenment, and that I can be help and benefit to others. And so once you have that strong feeling to engage in that practice, driven by that bodhicitta mind, then you take engaging both vows. And again, engaging both vows, again, there are certain ceremonies, again, the ceremony, there are sometimes extensive ceremony, and again, middle, very short, whatever. And again, at the very beginning, I'm trying to find qualified teachers who can, give you that, that vows, and then you take on that, and then, the practice, so then you take the both vows, engaging both vows, and then that comes with 18 root vows and 46 secondary vows, and then you try to keep them as much as possible throughout your life, throughout your life, until we achieve enlightenment, and keeping that precept, that vows of the bodhisattvas. Is key to keep our bodhicitta mind, attitude alive, and for it to grow, and for it to make progress. So that is why in this verse where it said, the single path, journey by all the conqueror of the three times, which is to strain my mind step with the pure vows of conquerors' sons. That is the bodhisattvas, keeping the bodhisattva vows pure is the single path, journey by the conqueror of the three times. All the Buddhas of the past, they achieved their enlightenment by keeping those bodhisattva vows purely. The present, all the enlightened beings, Buddhas, they are able to reach that end of their journey on the path through that. All the futures beings who are going to be enlightened, they also have no other path but to take the path and the journey towards their path by keeping those bodhisattvas vows pure, So once you become perfect, once you become enlightened, then there is no need of bodhisattva vows. Then there is no need of bodhisattva vows. So the bodhisattva's vows are the tools and the method to protect ourselves, to protect our mind, mostly to protect our mind. By protecting our mind, we protect ourselves. And how does it protect? It protects our mind from becoming too selfish, too self-centeredness. It protects our mind from becoming too self-centered. It protects us from hurting and harming others. So when you stop hurting and harming others, it also protects you from harm and pain yourself. So it is a way to protect others and protect yourself from more hurt, from more harm, from more suffering, pain. So the vows, that is the functioning of those vows. By taking those vows, then we try to keep them as much as we can, as much as we can. The more we are able to keep them, the more we are able to keep them pure, the more we are able to protect our, physical behavior and our speech that could create hurtful feelings, harmful feelings, and suffering to others and oneself. And it protects our mind, So therefore, that is what the vows does, Because at the moment, when you don't have those vows, there's a danger that we have the potential to create more hurt, harm, pain to others and oneself, and that is the vows and keeping the vows is a tools and method to protect others and oneself, both. So that is the. So then within that, so that is the vows here talking about. I seek your blessing that I may eagerly put into practice three Mahayana moral codes, three Mahayana moral codes or three Mahayana, moral discipline or ethical discipline, however you translate, however you call it. So that's the vows, So, and having taken those vows, then we try to train in those three bodhisattvas moral discipline, bodhisattva Mahayana moral discipline, So the Mahayana moral discipline or restraining or refraining from misdeeds, that is one of them, restraining or refraining from the more misdeeds, that is one of the Mahayana or Bodhisattva moral discipline or ethical discipline, the theory here is talking about, so that is, what that means is it is trying to be more aware and mindful and more watchful of our body, speech, and mind and behavior of our such thoughts, body, and speech. And then, whenever we notice, whenever we are aware that, that there is a physical behavior or speech or whether it's a mental state that seems to be harmful, that seems to be hurtful, that seems to create more pain, suffering to others, we try to stop it. oh, if I do that, it will hurt someone, it will harm someone, it will bring more pain and suffering to someone. So I should stop it. So you stop from doing that. If you are trying to do something physically, you stop doing that physical actions. If you are saying something verbally that is hurtful, you stop saying anymore. Stop that. If you are having a bad thoughts to hurt someone, stop having that thoughts. Because again, we are trying to practice Bodhisattva's path, and it's all trying to be helpful, kind, benefit to others. At least we don't want to hurt and harm anyone. And so trying to, and that kind of reframing or restraining such misdeed driven by the compassion bodhicitta mind, because we regard each and every sentient being is precious. Each and every sentient being is precious. Each and every sentient beings do not want to suffer. So therefore, I shouldn't create any more pain, suffering to them. So with that, with that restraining from having a too much selfish attitude, too much selfish attitude. When we, again, with our mindfulness, watchfulness, we watch our mind, thoughts, and then when we started to be aware, notice we're being too selfish, having a too much strong selfish attitude. Be aware of that. Notice that. Oh, such strong selfish attitude is not helpful, beneficial to others, to me. It's not helpful, beneficial anyone. Such selfish attitude is, obstacles and against the very path that I'm trying to follow, the Bodhisattva path. Such strong selfish attitude is, is the one that is making me to not to follow the path, the Bodhisattva path, is the one that is making me to, break those commitments and the vows. And with all of that kind of, from many different contemplation, understanding, we try to refrain from having that kind of too much strong selfish attitude. By restraining, reframing, by being able to restrain and refrain from having a too much strong selfish attitude manifesting, we'll be able to stop a lot of those misdeeds. Because lots of those misdeeds comes because of our selfish attitude. A lot of those misdeeds that hurt and harm others come because of too much strong selfish attitude. So we try to do that. Then, the Bodhisattva moral discipline, is helping and is engaging or engaging and performing into the virtues, through body, speech, and mind, all kinds of different virtues, as a way to be benefit to others, out of compassion for others. Out of compassion for others, by restraining and reframing the selfish attitude. Instead, we cultivate more love, compassion, understanding of others. And with that love, compassion, less selfish attitude, more love, compassion, understanding for others and others' sufferings, pain, others' well-being. And then we see, the way to help benefit is engage in more virtues through body, speech, and mind. So engaging in such virtues, especially the practice of the virtues of the practice of six perfections or six paramita, especially engaging in those virtues such as the six paramita or 10 paramita, and for means of gathering the sentient beings or disciple in order to help and benefit them. So engage in those different virtuous practices. So that is one of the other moral discipline. And then, again, the third one, moral discipline, is Bodhisattva moral discipline. Is the Bodhisattva moral discipline or ethical discipline of helping and benefiting others, or working for the benefit of others, working for the well-being of others. So again, the main point is, again, be more mindful, watchful of our thoughts, our emotions, our mind. And whenever we have any kind of too much strong selfish attitude, we try to recognize, be aware, and trying to not allow ourselves or our mind, our emotion be taken away by that strong selfish attitude. Instead, we try to restrain and refrain from having that too strong selfish attitude. We try to, by applying whatever method, by applying whatever technique, antidote that you have, that you have access to restrain and refrain from having such a strong selfish attitude, self-centeredness. And by reducing that, by reframing, restraining from having such a attitude, instead we try to cultivate more attitude of loving kindness, compassion, concern, understanding of others' feelings, others' pains, others' well-beings. On the basis of that, from the foundations of that, then we'll try to engage into activities that brings, that can help to reduce the suffering of others, that can help to relieve others of their pain and suffering, that can help to improve and increase others' well-being, happiness. And so from the different source of sutras, then there are 10 different ways of benefiting or working for the well-being of others. So again, I'm not going to go in detail each of them, but that numbers of 11 is not the number that only that 11, Those are just some examples that you find in different sutras, and then some of the Indian masters like Shantideva, then they have taken some of those things from some other source, different sutra source, and they come number 11, But there are more than 11 ways of helping and benefiting others, There are hundreds and thousands way of helping and benefiting others, So those are just those 11s that you see, numbers that you often see that lamrim and other texts of that 11, the number given 11 just because Buddha gives some examples, how you can be benefit for, let's say, someone who is homeless, how you can benefit and help someone who is homeless, for example. Buddha give one example of that. And so then that was taken as one way of helping and benefiting. And then Buddha give another example, another sutra, how you can work for the well-being of others. And so because of that, then that is how this number comes, But it doesn't mean that is these are the only way to benefit or work for the benefit of others. And so, so yeah, so once we have taken the engaging both sets of vows, then of course, we'll try to train, because we take that engaging both sets of vows because we have a strong inspirations to engage in the practice of such as six perfections, six paramita. Because we see through practice of six paramita, we can be benefit to others, as well as that is the path, only the path to lead to enlightenment. And so then the next is trying to practice the six paramita as much as possible, integrating the six paramita in our everyday life as much as possible. And then through the practice of six paramita, those six paramitas are, some of them, benefit others directly. Indirectly, it benefits you both. Some of them, it benefits you directly. Indirectly, it benefits others in long terms. So therefore, for example, the practice of generosity. Six parameters, maybe I should give the number at least, because those will come later in more detail with other verses. So the paramita or perfection of generosity, moral discipline, patience, joyous effort, and then meditative concentration and wisdom. Those are the six. So when we practice the practice of generosity, through the practice of generosity, definitely we are able to help someone to relieve or reduce their pain to someone who is having a suffering of hunger by providing a food. It relieves them of the pain of hungerness for a while, at least. So we are able to reduce the suffering of someone. Just to give an example, okay? So in that way, it helps that person directly to reduce their suffering, their pain. In terms of the practice of moral discipline, because of our moral discipline, we try to restrain and refrain from hurting and harming any sentient being through our body, speech, and mind. So when you engage that person is protected from your harm. Do you get it? That person is protected from the harm, that potential that you have, that you could harm them. So that because of your moral discipline, so then you don't allow that potential to arise through your practice of restraining, refraining, and so therefore you don't engage into any mental, verbal, physical action, behavior that could hurt and harm someone. And so therefore that person or that sentient being is protected from such painful harm. So again, that sentient beings, it helps that sentient beings directly from receiving more suffering, more pain. In terms of the practice of third one, the patience, tolerance, when someone is being unkind to us, cruel to us, nasty to us. And when they try to hurt, harm us, if you don't have patience, we become impatient, upset, angry about that. And through that kind of upset and angry, we'll definitely react, response. That will again hurt that person's either through, verbally, through physically, mentally, all of them, And through that, again, that person gets hurt. We get hurt, and then we respond, react, and that person gets hurt. But through the practice of patience, by training in the practice of the patience, you don't respond, react with such to hurt and harm others, back. You don't respond back to hurt and harm others. So again, from that person's, because of your practice of patience, that person is able to protect from receiving more suffering, more hurt, and more harm from yourself. Therefore, that person is protected. And so that is how it helps and benefit the others directly. And indirectly, all this practice benefit us, help us. All this practice help and benefit us. And then the practice of, meditative concentration, the practice of the wisdom, it definitely help us directly. When you have that kind of karma abiding meditative state, your mind is always more calm, more peaceful, less distracted, able to focus better, strong focus, and you don't allow the negative emotion from manifesting so much, and therefore able to keep calm, peaceful. And because the wisdom, we are able to overcome the afflictive emotions. And by having overcome the afflictive emotions, we have less pain, less sufferings. As our wisdom gets more stronger, bigger, powerful, less and less suffering, less and less pain, and we become more and more, we progress more and more on the path, and more free from the sufferings. And then the joyous effort in our practice, in our virtues, help us to develop that kind of shamatha or meditative state and the wisdom. So first three, so those are the things that help us directly, but indirectly, those are the tools that help us to be benefit to others. More wisdom I have, the more I am able to help others. The more wisdom I have, the more I'm able to help others. The less afflictive emotion I have, the more I'm able to help others. And also same with the kind of shamatha, the more my mind is calm, peaceful, the more I create pain and suffering to others. The less pain and suffering I create to others. The more my mind is disturbed, the more it is our experience. The more when my mind is disturbed, the more I create suffering and pain to others. When my mind is more peaceful, calm, I create less suffering and pain to others. And also, that shamatha is the key to the wisdom, And so indirectly, directly, those three later part help us, and then indirectly is help to others, because those are the tools that give us to be more help to others. And so through that kind of practice of six paramita, through the practice of six paramita, not only that lead to the enlightenment, But when we engage in those practice, it immediately benefit oneself and others. Sometimes directly, sometimes it helps us directly, and others indirectly. Sometimes some of those practices help others directly, indirectly help us. And so therefore, again, so that is how, yeah, maybe we can discuss more in the future when it comes through the practice of sixth perfection. It support the bodhicitta mind. Through the practice of bodhicitta, it support the six perfections, how they kind of mutually support the practice, each of them. So maybe I will stop here. If there is any questions, comments, I still have 5 minutes. I can take a couple of them. There is one question. What is your advice for strengthening your practice of six paramitas? No. We have to be aware the importance of those six paramitas, and also be aware that those six paramitas are not different practice from the bodhicitta mind. When our practice of six paramita improve, it also help bodhicitta mind. For our bodhicitta mind to be more strong, more alive, to it to grow. When you are more patient, we don't become angry, and we don't have hurtful feelings to others. So that helps to keep our compassion to our bodhicitta mind from deteriorating. When we practice generosity, it is like putting water on the bodhicitta mind, compassionate mind, that keep our compassionate mind, loving mind, the bodhicitta mind more alive, maintaining. And so, if we are aware of that, then while we try to work very hard to cultivate and to improve our bodhicitta mind, at the same time, those practices are not also separate from them. And therefore, if we continue to practice that, it could support this one. And also when we have bodhicitta, we also support the others. So by knowing that, by being aware of that, and then trying to practice in a way that it complements each other's. And so that is like every practice, when you are more aware of them, when you know the benefit of those practice, when you know the importance of those different practices, and how important, why it is important, all of that, if you recognize them, then definitely you will be more inspired to do the practice. If you are not aware of those things, if you don't see so importance of them, if you don't see how or why it is so important, all of that, or the benefit of all of that, then maybe we might be less inspired to do the practice. And so when we are less inspired, then we don't have a strong practice. When we have more strong inspirations to do practice, then we strengthen those practice. And again, if we kind of be mindful and watchful, how with the time, as you practice more and more, whatever any of those six perfection, all of them, how it started to have change, then again, to be aware of that, when we do have positive change, and being aware of that, knowing that is helpful, because that gives you inspirations. Sometimes the change are happening, positive change are happening, and sometimes we are not even aware of that. And then you think, I've been practicing, but there hasn't been any changes. There hasn't been any transformations. So then you don't get so much inspirations. But sometimes change and transformation happen very subtly, very in subtle way. And sometimes we are not aware of it unless you pay attention and more be mindful. You know, it's like you seeing a child growing up every day. You don't see they are growing so much because you see every day, unless you actually measure them and you see they have already grown up by few inches, few centimeters or few inches. But someone who have not seen for a few months, a year, then they will see, he or she has grown up so much, you know. And similarly, practice also when we are always with ourselves, and when we do that practice all the time, and our actions, sometimes we are not aware of those changes, subtle changes that is happening. And so I think sometimes it's good to know that through our practice over the time, some of the positive changes, transformation that is happening in our life, our attitude, our behavior, our interactions, you know, our way of thinking, you know. So when you see that, then you see, you know, I've made some small progress, and that give you some kind of more energy, more kind of inspirations to practice and to practice even more stronger. So yeah. So I think maybe now we'll do the dedications. May all beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with the mind weighed down by depressions. May the blind see form and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever disease they are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightening sick be afraid and those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Thank you very much again, everyone, for joining, and have a wonderful day and rest of the week. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la.